Welcome back to Underage Packers episode 55. I'm one of your co-hosts, Joey. Today, as always, joining me is Big B. How are you doing today, Big B? First playoff episode of Underage Packers.
Oh boy, I'm excited.
Give a fine message to our audio listeners without your little kazoo entrance.
Oh yeah. Yes, I'm excited. Playoff
Excited
time.
to be here. Great playoff. Joining us today to talk about the playoffs, Packers versus Rams, is the DVOA King. Now, I'm sure a lot of our viewers from Cheesehead TV, they might have a bad image of him, but it's Peter Bukowski. How you doing, Peter?
I'm good, guys. How are you?
Doing good. I think, look, we'll talk a little bit about DVA because I think or just like the advanced analytics, because DVOA to me will always mean dorks value only analytics. But that's just because I think there's what Corey Banky thinks you are is kind of my perception of what a lot of your listeners are. I think, and that's not an insult to your fans, because I think there's two ways you can be diehard. They are the fans that want to know how and why, as your introduction implies. And then there's people, that
Right.
you know, not that they don't care about analytics or anything, but
They just want to be fans.
yeah, exactly. There's different ways to be fans, as Corey Banky would always say as well. So let's talk about Packers versus Rams. Let's get to actual football here. It's going to be an interesting matchup. I think after what Los Angeles did to Seattle last week, it was kind of came to a shock to all of us, and we were looking at it now. We're like, I think we were underestimating the Rams last week, and having a bad taste in our mouth, especially after the last few weeks, losing to the Jets, having a terrible performance in Seattle. And then they have a great defensive performance in Seattle for the wild card round. And now they're coming to Lambeau Field. I think there's a lot of scary things being built up on Twitter this week, Big B. What do you think of all this Jalen Ramsey drama, the Aaron Donald drama? Do you think this Rams defense being overhyped? Do you think people are underestimating some points of the Packers?
Yikes, a lot to unfold there. But I feel like the Rams defense is legit. Like it is great defense. But people on Twitter are just overreacting, I feel like, just a little bit.
I think a lot of it with the Jalen Ramsey, especially, it's so much of, the game is a lot more complex with Jalen Ramsey. It's not going to be Jalen Ramsey shadowing Devontae Adams the whole game, especially with Devontae Adams and the Packers offense. He's going to be moved around a lot. Peter, what do you think is, because I think there's one situation in my mind where I think the Rams could, by the first quarter, pretty much have this game in the books. What do you think is the scariest thing with how the Rams match up with the Packers?
Well, first of all, I just want to know what cave Big B is recording in. It's very, very dark. I'm just confused.
Somewhere in Upper Michigan.
No, it's always they only see sun in the UP like 3 hours a day right now. So I guess I understand why it's so dark there right now. The thing about this, and you pointed it out, look, we have spent a lot of time and the national media has spent a lot of time, not to go, I'll turn on you or anything, but they've spent a lot of time talking about Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald. And of course, those are guys who can wreck your game on their own. What I think is more concerning from a defensive standpoint with the Packers is just what Brandon Staley can do as a coordinator, the looks that he can get you in, and the way that he can play mind games. You don't know. I said this in a piece I wrote for Acme Packing Company, shameless plug, that this defense, they're con men, because they show you something and then they do this other thing. They make you believe something and then they make you wrong for believing that thing. And that's what I think. When you can get Aaron Rodgers second guessing what he's seeing, that's when I think you have a chance to slow down this offense. And it's really the only way that either you make him see ghosts like you did a little bit against Tampa, or you really have to play with what he's seeing pre-snap and post-snap.
I think, Brandon Staley has obviously been another name that's been brought up a lot lately in head coaching talks this week going up against the Packers. I looked on his Wikipedia page. Big D knows I always have to do that for my coaching connection research. And you know, he had a pretty big jump from a pretty small school to being the outside linebackers coach with the Broncos, I believe. Educate us a little bit on what is that Vic Fangio defense exactly, and what does Brandon Staley do well with that?
So the good news for the Packers is that they've seen Vic Fangio's defense. You go back to the early 2010s, those 49ers teams that the Packers couldn't beat. It wasn't because Vic Fangio was locking down Rodgers every time, although that was certainly part of it. It was they couldn't tackle Colin Kaepernick. That was a big problem. When Vic Fangio got to Chicago, he didn't have the same sort of horses, didn't have the same sort of cover guys, and didn't have the same sort of pass rushers. Look at how that defense changed when they got Khalil Mack. So what they do is they're always going to show you pre-snap two high safeties. So Packer fans, when you watch the game, you will see those two safeties back 85, 9% of the time, but they're not going to that too high coverage every time. They're almost always in zone, but backside, Jalen Ramsey could be in man coverage, especially if, you know, the Packers love to go trips, right? So you put on one side of the field, you put Devontae Adams on the other side of the field. You might have Jalen Ramsey in man coverage on that side, and you might have zone the rest of the field. That makes things really complicated for a quarterback. It makes things complicated for the offensive line. They don't blitz a lot because they don't have to. Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd, those guys are good enough. They play a lot of light boxes. Well, what do you do against light boxes? You run the ball. Well, they're one of the best run defenses in football. In fact, by DVOA, third in run defense. They're a really good run defense. Basically, Zach Cruz on Twitter the other day, they're defensively what Mike Patton would like to be, because they can play in sub package the entire game, still stop the run, and because they can get after you and because they're so disciplined in the back end, they can just be who they are and not have to worry about you being who you are.
Yeah, the run defense is scary, and especially because, you know, with Jalen Ramsey, with the star corner there, you know, I don't think Devontae is going to be completely locked down, but you're going to have your other options, and you're going to have to get your run game going. So if the Rams are able to contain Aaron Jones, have an answer for the GOAT Jamal Williams or A.J. Dillon, then the Packers offense might be experiencing some problems.
Well, I don't think it's hard to take advantage of that.
But the Rams on offense, I think the main point of their run game or their offense is going to be the run game with Cam Akers. What would your comparison be? Because Cam Akers is pretty new running back on the scene. I mean, he's had some great performances, 170 yards against New England. What would a pro comparison be to a running back the Packers faced earlier this season, Peter?
Well, Cam Akers was someone that I really liked coming out of Florida State. He was a running back that I felt like didn't get enough credit for the skills that he had. His ability to cuts and be explosive is something that I thought really would have fit well his Packers offense. And I was a little surprised, you know, that was not a player that they were a little bit more interested in. You know, it's tough because I struggle with the comp thing. It is so hard to take traits and project forward. It's just a rookie. Yeah. When I did his draft evaluation, I take notes on all these guys. I actually was just looking for it, and I didn't even put a comp in because I struggled with it. But the first line of my write-up is, if Cam Akers becomes the best running back in this class, no one should be surprised. Wow. The combination of physical tools is really sensational. The problem is this year he just hasn't been healthy. And now that he has been healthy over the last month, he's getting 15, 20 carries, averaged almost 5 yards a carry against the Seahawks in the wild card round. He's really a talented back. And, you know, I think as a one-cut runner in this outside zone, it's exactly what you want. It's exactly the kind of player who is just tailor-made for this offense. It's why I thought, you know, the Packers would be interested in him. And he wasn't even 21 when they drafted him. So there's still a lot of room to grow here for a guy who is already a really good athlete. And so he's, you know, Zadarius Smith, I think it was 2 days ago, they did the Zoom call yesterday with the Smith brothers. Zadarius said, we haven't even really talked about rushing the passer. they're really focused on stopping Cam Akers and making sure that this run game is why they lose on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would not love another playoff run to be damaged by a great running back. But yeah, I think, like I mentioned earlier, the first quarter of this game, I think is going to tell us a lot. Are the Rams able to get that run game going? Are the Packers still able to function on offense, even with the Rams defense going up against them? And I think it will tell us a lot. And hopefully they're able to put it into Cam Akers pretty quickly. But Big B, what are you looking to see from the Packers in the first few drives of this game to show, I don't expect it to be a blowout, but you feel pretty confident that they'll get away with a win?
All right. Well, I'm pretty confident, so I would expect a couple touchdown drives in the beginning of the game. Get at least one stop on defense. I'm pretty confident with our defense, but at least one stop in maybe the first 3 drives. I don't know. Hold them to a field goal, maybe.
Yeah, I think I would love to see, like you mentioned, just a touchdown on the opening drive. That'd be great. They've been able to do that so well so far this year. And then, I don't see any threat on the Rams offense outside of Cam Akers. So if they can, like I said, get better at that, turn Cam Akers down early, get off to that fast start. So they're pretty much daring Jared Goff to beat them come the second quarter. Peter, what would you like to see from this Packers team in the first few drives?
I mean, start fast. And that's always one of those silly things that say, oh, this, the coach told us we really want to start fast in this game. The next time you hear an announcer say, coach told us we really want to get off to a slow start, you let me know. That's just, it's not sparkling analysis to say that they need to start fast, I don't think. But when you're talking about things you want to see, the Packers can go down 10-0 in this game and I think be okay.
Yeah.
If the Rams go down 10-0, that's a real problem for LA because Jared Goff, everyone's favorite pirate, Four Finger Jared, is not going to be particularly effective apparently he's going to wear 2 gloves. He was practicing LA with the 2 gloves. Jared 2 gloves doesn't have the same sort of to it that Teddy 2 gloves does. But their ability to press off and force him to make mistakes is going to be, I think, what separates them in this game. I think they're going to be able to score points. I think Green Bay is going to get to 24 points. Can the Rams?
Yeah.
And they won some games late in the season where they haven't had to get to 24 or 27 points. I think Green Bay is going to have a good game plan here. I think you're going to see those 5-man fronts that we saw against Tennessee, that we saw against San Francisco. And even if they play a 5-1 with Barnes behind the 3 linemen and the 2 outside linebackers, I think it's going to be really hard for the Rams to find space. And so that, I think, all of the discussion that we've had about the Rams defense, I think the difference in this game to me is going to be the Packers' ability to get stops here. This could be a game where the Rams struggle to get to 17 or 20 points.
Yeah, so the Rams, they had a good finish outside of against the Jets, and I asked Matt Tracksuit Schneidman in his head of the pack Q&A what the Jets did well against the Rams. He didn't answer me. So Peter, tell us, what did the Jets do well against the Rams?
They took what the defense allowed them to take, and again, that seems simplistic. But when you are playing that 2 show, you're not going to be able to hit throws down the field. And so if you bang your head against the wall, trying to always look for those deep shots, this has to be a game where Aaron Rodgers is willing to say, I can take the RPO here because we have an advantageous look. And if it's 4 yards, it's an extension of our run game, and that's good. And maybe Devontae Adams breaks a tackle and it's 7 or it's 12. Can you hit those slants and those crossing routes underneath and not feel like you have to push the ball down the field? That's what Sam Darnold did. Everything was underneath. I mean, Dusty Evely wrote a great piece for Cheesehead TV where he looked at that Jets game, and you look at the passing distribution. I mean, everything is in that first 10-yard window. Yeah. And that was enough. They still got to 23 points. They hit a touchdown on a little running back swing route where they cleared out the left side in that against that zone coverage, and you got the running wide open on the sideline. It's not complicated football, but the Rams execute so well that you have to have good designs on offense too. And a lot of it is just going to have to be, look, let's put the 3-by-1-on-1, put Adams and Ramsey on the other side and see if Adams can win that matchup. I think they can't be afraid to go away from that and give yourself a chance to let Devontae, win against Ramsey. This can't be what Mike McCarthy used to do against Richard Sherman and just send someone out there to be the sacrificial lamb. Mm-hmm. You can't do that because you're eliminating one side of the field then. So you have to be willing to be multifaceted in that way. And the Jets, who don't have a lot of playmakers, were mm-hmm. able to take enough of that underneath stuff because that's what's there.
Taking that information into consideration, Big B, MVS probably, even if his cornerback matchup isn't too well with those two high safeties, I mean his bread and butter isn't going to be there as much on those deep shots. Is there a wide receiver that you think can absolutely step up in those situations, or is it someone coming out of the backfield that you think will have a big game in the receiving department this week?
Well, you gave me the opportunity to shout out Jamal Williams out of the backfield. Mm-hmm. All right. Man got some hands. But if we're saying wide receivers, I'm going to say Allen Lazard. All right. He's been quiet since his injury. I'd love to have a big Allen Lazard game.
I would love it too. Just take those slants all day. Let's maybe not take a note out of Seattle's book and throw a wide receiver screen. But, other than that, I would completely love to see Tanya and Lazard eat. Let's end it off here with our key matchups outside of the popular answers of Jalen Ramsey, Devontae Adams, Aaron Donald, and Corey Linsley. Peter, what is your key matchup for this game?
How about Kenny Clark against the interior of the LA Rams offense? Because we know Andrew Whitworth is a really good player. He is going to be able to, especially against Preston Smith, win that matchup pretty consistently. But the interior of that offensive line has some vulnerabilities. And so if Kenny Clark can start, he's been playing really good football here the last 6-8 weeks. And he said as much, early December, he said, look, I'm frustrated with how we've been winning a lot, but I'm frustrated with how I'm playing. And since then, he's played pissed off. So I think if he can not just stop the run inside, but then get an interior pass rush, that's going to be death for the Rams, because so much of what they want to do is attack the middle of the field. And if you have that pass rush coming up right in your face, that's where you're going to pressure Goff into bad situations. He sails passes. There's 26 in Green taking the ball the other way. And I think that gives Green Bay a lot of advantageous situations that they can be in.
Peter, you're going to make me go into Madden franchise and give Darnell Savage 5 picks in this game. Obviously, the pass rush was a big part. And last year in the divisional round against Seattle, and hopefully Kenny Clark can be another part of that with Za'Darius, and maybe Preston Smith has a 2019-like performance. Big B, what is your key matchup for this game?
I'm going to go with the real best corner in the game, Jair Alexander, versus whoever he's covering. I don't know. I'm not that smart. I don't know who's covering who, but we'll say Robert Woods, because why not, right? Is that
probably either him or Cooper Kupp? I'm going to go with the guy on the opposite side of the field of him, Kevin Keene. If Jair, I have no doubt that Jair Alexander will handle his business, but don't let Kevin Keene be taken advantage of. And hopefully we can assure that defense and hold the Rams to less than 10 points. Final score predictions, and then we'll let you go, Peter. Big B, let's hear it.
31-24 Packers win.
I'm surprised you even think the Rams are going to score that many points. Peter, what's your final score prediction?
That's going to be a much more exciting game than what I'm predicting. I hope it is much more like that than what I'm looking at. I'm thinking it's more like 21-17, something like that. I think the Packers win, but I think the Rams cover. I think 6.5 points is too many. And a lot of your listeners are probably not old enough to gamble, so don't worry about it. But that's okay. I think it's going to be a relatively close game and a low-scoring game.
I hope my brother is a big gambler though, and he's one of our biggest fans. So we'll make sure. My final score prediction will go with it's kind of that same area. 24-13 Packers get the win. Earlier in the week, I wasn't feeling too confident, but you listen to some Packers podcasts. It might not be too insightful, but they get you hyped up anyways. Thanks everybody for listening to part one of our interview. Peter, thanks so much for your time.